What's up, Crypto Land? It's time for another roundtable, and this time we're talking about the new version of the ARK Deployer that is going live in public beta during Q4 of 2020. Now, if you have missed the roundtable that we did on Market Square, I'm going to link that in the description. That's also on YouTube. But the new version of the deployer is the simplest way to create a blockchain. And I'm joined today by 3 other ARK team members. We're going to talk about deployer, our experiences with testing it, and also we're going to take some community questions that you have asked us, and we'll go into all those details. So stay tuned on that. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. It really tells the YouTube algorithm that you like what we've got going on here, and you'll get all of the latest news and updates about ARK, as well as cool videos about ARK technology and action. You can check our channel for those. Okay, so with all of these introduction things out of the way, let us begin by introducing the team members who are here. Same team that was here for the Market Square roundtable. And for the full introductions, I'm going to ask you to actually hit that Market Square roundtable video. So we're going to just go through these introductions pretty quickly. But if you'd like to know more about these team members, you can hit that video. So first up, we have Matthew DC, who's the Chief Strategy Officer of ARK.io. Matt, are you out there? Say what's up.
I'm out here. Hi, everyone.
Next up, we have Ray, who's the Strategic Partnerships Manager for ARK.io. Ray, how's it going?
Hey, everybody.
And then we also have Elaine Egan here, who is the Community Engagement Manager of ARK.io. It's a tongue twister on that one. Elaine, are you out there?
I'm out there. Hi, everybody.
And I'm Justin. I'm the Senior Brand Manager, and I also run the YouTube channel, as you might know if you've seen other videos. And I run a podcast every week at podcast.ark.io, where we talk about all things ARK. So we are getting into the deployer now, and the deployer has a pretty interesting history. The first version was command line only for hackathon teams to deploy chains quickly during competitions. And the second version was an enhanced version of the command line interface, but coupled with a graphical user interface and helpful guides and procedures to get people to deploy chains even quicker. That was the first time I was able to deploy a chain. I was really excited about it. And now this new version will implement auto deployment of the chain in the background with one click. So you can connect a VPS to it like DigitalOcean and have a blockchain ready to go with just one click, sit back, have a coffee. This is everything that we're talking about today, and we're going into some community questions. But first, we need to talk about the problem that the deployer solves and why the deployer even needs to exist. So I'm going to turn it over to Matt at this time. And Matt, I'm going to ask you, why does deployer exist, and how does it fit into the overall ARK blockchain platform? What is the problem that deployer addresses?
Yeah, so you covered a little bit about sort of the genesis of the deployer. And that was that we started early on doing a lot of hackathons and conferences and kind of events. And what we realized at the hackathons specifically was that there was no blockchain platform, including ours at the time, that were easy to quickly, rapidly produce prototypes for. And so in the sense of a hackathon, you've only got, 1 to 3 days in a lot of cases. And it was extremely complicated to build a blockchain in that amount of time and then build something on it. So we decided to sort of find an easier way to do things. This goes back to our overriding mission at ARK, which is to make blockchain easy for everyone, right? Like that's kind of what we're all about. And so we knew that it was too complicated at that point to sort of create a blockchain, the base blockchain piece, because you can't create the application unless the blockchain exists, right? So originally, we sat down and we said, okay, what's the easiest way we can get a prototype to market for hackathons? And that was the command line version. That was sort of the first version of deployer. And it sort of filled that niche for hackathons, but we quickly realized that it wasn't very intuitive. It required them to have a certain base level knowledge to get started, which took up time. And so we said, okay, we need to have a GUI, right? We need to give some kind of user interface to this to make it easier for people to just jump in and start building. And so we created the second version of the deployer, and that version was the first version that sort of had this kind of graphical interface and allowed people to really be able to jump in and customize very, very quickly. However, we knew we weren't quite done there, and we had a lot left to build to make it really work for people. And so we had the graphical interface. You could customize your blockchain and you could push it. But once you got done customizing, the pushing it part required you to go to a command line again and sort of run a bunch of commands to actually deploy the blockchain. And so we knew that wasn't very intuitive for the user, and we sort of built it in stages. So we had the command line, then we built the interface for customization, and then the new version builds in the interface that you're going to use to actually deploy without having to use any command line for the entire process. So this new version of deployer really automates the entire start to finish process of deploying a blockchain. So now all of it's in the interface. You can go from assigning the first ticker to actually having a deployed working blockchain with an explorer and all of the nodes that you need, all within the user interface, all deployment automatic. So the real big sort of addition in the newest version of the deployer is this automatic deployment piece. And it fits that goal of, make blockchain easy for everybody. If it's hard to make a blockchain, if it's hard to customize one, if it's hard to deploy one, people just aren't going to do it. And so we wanted to make it as easy as possible to go from idea to implementation on the blockchain piece so that you could then focus on building your application.
So Matt, let me ask you this. I mean, how do you see the benefits that are brought to these hackathon teams that was the origins of the deployer? How do you see those benefits translating to the outside world and making it easier to deploy a blockchain?
Well, part of this was for ourselves. One of the things that we want to do is facilitate, customer ideas and applications for businesses. That's why we created Protocol, an enterprise services division of ARK. The idea here was that for our own needs to be able to rapidly deploy prototypes and new versions of our blockchain platform that could then be all kinds of different uses in different industries across the globe, we needed to be able to rapidly deploy on our own. So part of this was not just for hackathons and prototyping kind of tinkering, but also for enterprise level implementations. It allows us to quickly and rapidly sort of build these prototypes for these companies that we can then move on to a full-on application. So really, it kind of applies in both.
Now, Ray, since being a part of the testing and feedback process, can you give us your impression of Deployer as a tool for users and projects to launch blockchains and join the ecosystem? How do you see Deployer as a potential tool for gaining partnerships with other entities and organizations?
I definitely see it as a very strong tool here in our arsenal. What this solves is three things right off the bat for different people that have approached us in the past. And one of them is, first, like Matt had alluded to, was being able to rapidly deploy a blockchain for prototyping and testing. This deployer does everything for you, and it does it in a quick manner. Like I'll get to my impressions later on, but basically I'm able to launch and deploy the blockchain within 30 minutes. And for me, if I was a developer and I just wanted to test something without having that high barrier of entry and also investment of time, right, to get it up and running, the deployer is the best way. The second thing that a lot of companies and projects have come to me with is the concern of scalability. If the whole DeFi situation that's going right now in crypto is any indication, you can see that the gas fees and the problems on different networks are becoming more evident now than ever. Thirdly, that goes into that is sovereignty. Projects want to have control of their business and decisions in the future. And by having your own blockchain that's deployed with the deployer, you don't run into that, and you're not beholden to some big network like Ethereum that will be making decisions. And sometimes those decisions might work within your company's vision, and sometimes it might not work within that. So as a tool for gaining partnerships, all those three areas taken in together really make ARK a very strong prospect when people are looking at where do they want to deploy and build, because we give them the freedom to own their blockchain, and we give them the tools necessary to deploy it in a quick manner and in an efficient manner that's actually going to be productive to what they're using it for.
Oh, very fascinating. But let me ask you this follow-up. I mean, how real do you think the barrier to entry is for new organizations or enterprises getting into blockchain technology? Because it seems like to the lay person, they're this big company, they have all these employees, they have this tech team. And if they want to dabble with blockchain technology, they don't need a simple user interface to do that. They can just use their smart tech people and code up blockchains and just get started. So in your perspective, how real do you think that barrier to entry is for these organizations who've never been involved with blockchain before? And how valuable do you think that the deployer will be for them?
I think for companies that are very used to creating their blockchains from scratch and everything, I still think that the deployer offers a lot of freedom in the ways that you do it. With all the different ways that you can customize the deployer, you can rapidly test different types of of systems that you want to use them for, right? So for instance, if I want to deploy a blockchain very quickly and not have to worry about sitting there and having my team invest time and resources into creating it, I can just launch it with Deployer. I can set the configurations that I want, and I can get started. There's over 35 different customizable fields and over 1,000 different combinations that I can work with within Deployer. And that alone saves a lot of time when you're looking at, testing different solutions, and you want to also work within the Deployer systems, which are very fast and intuitive.
All right, thanks very much, Ray. So we're moving into the community aspect of Deployer now, and how Deployer can impact the community of ARK and beyond. Now, Elaine, this question is for you. As the community engagement manager for ARK.io, can you go into detail on how you feel the community might react to the new Deployer? Do you believe Deployer will allow more community members and developers than ever before to harness ARK technology?
Definitely. I feel that we're going to get a very positive reaction to the new Deployer. The chatter in the channel so far has been very enthusiastic. The new Deployer is just light years ahead of the previous ones from what I've seen. And the user experience and documentation are going to be fantastic. So I definitely think that once the word gets out there and people start using Deployer, the uptake is going to be huge. So yeah, I feel that the community is going to embrace Deployer.
Well, thanks very much, Elaine. And I also, for one, look really forward to exposing Deployer to the community, because I've noticed a trend with our community where they're the most excited about the things that they can use the most. So like our desktop wallet, like they love it a lot. They love the user experience. They love talking about it. They love recommending it to their friends because they can use it. As a regular person, they can get in there and use the wallet and see what it's like, and they're really happy with the experience. So I think that last year's Deployer, some people, if they had the time and the true drive to deploy a blockchain, they could. Like I was able to do that, but it wasn't as intuitive as the wallet is today, and all that. So I think that with the new version of the Deployer, community members will be able to actually test this out. Not to say that they would need a blockchain or require a blockchain for some specific reason, but they can look further into what ARK is building and putting out for developers and get more enthusiastic about the project. So just like you were saying, I think that it's going to be a cool thing to expose this to the community. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Elaine. Okay, so now that we've handled the initial questions to kind of look at Deployer from different perspectives, we're going to go into the initial impressions of testing. Now, we recently released an article on blog.ark.io that gave you a first look into Deployer with screenshots, with advanced details on how it works and where Deployer is heading. But this is not a mock-up situation. Like Deployer is functioning, and we've been testing it heavily. We've been adding some new features. We've been tweaking some design elements. And it was a really cool experience to be able to use this new Deployer, especially in comparison to the previous versions. So what I'm going to do now is have everybody give their impressions when they first started using the new Deployer and what they thought of it. So Matt, we're starting with you, and we're going with your impressions first here. When you started using the platform in its current state, what were your initial impressions? How does the current version of the Deployer live up to the initial vision?
Yeah, so I talked about this with Market Square, but a lot of these have been many years in the making. And so for me to really see these kind of come to fruition and get into the hands of people has been really exciting. This new version of Deployer, it's basically a completely different product than the one we released before. So much has changed and improved in the user interface and how the user flow evolved that you won't even recognize it if you use the old one. And that's a good thing in a lot of cases, because there's a lot more functionality, and it's just easier to jump into and use for somebody who hasn't used it before. I think that it definitely lives up to the vision. There's no question there. The ease of deployment is unbelievable compared to what we've had in the past. In previous versions, the command line piece actually deploying was pretty complicated still, and it made a lot of people not able to really fully use the Deployer. But this new version, I think it's really going to get people tinkering because it's so easy, right? People can play around a lot more with what's possible because you can literally launch a testnet in 30 minutes to an hour from start to finish, customized and ready to go. And so I think that allows a lot more experimentation, which I think is something that will be really really interesting to see evolve. And so my initial impressions were it's super easy to use. It's way more advanced and functional than the previous version. I love the UI and I love the user flow, and I'm really excited to get it out there.
Nice. Thanks, Matt. So next up, let's go to Ray. Ray, your initial impressions. What specific thoughts come to mind when you were first using it?
For me, it really just hits home the whole point click blockchain slogan, like to a T, because I used the first version of the deployer when it came out. And for me, I had a gap in knowledge when it came up to configuring the servers and getting the servers ready. So I didn't finish actually deploying a chain on version 1. But when I got to version 2, expecting to encounter maybe the same problems, and then luckily having Sam, our QA person, in the chat at the same time during testing, I thought I was going to have to be going back and forth with Sam on how do I configure my server, how do I deploy it, how do I get everything set up and running. But I only really just gave feedback to Sam as to what I was seeing. I really didn't have to use him as a resource and have to take up any of his time to deploy the chain, because it did it for me. So that was the best feeling ever, like having the deployer just me put in all the details I wanted and then hit a button, and then all of a sudden I just see the whole list of things start propagating there and saying, okay, well, now I just got to go get a coffee and just wait for this to finish. And literally came back, sat down, I see all my Genesis nodes, everything totally set up without me having to do anything, no extra input. And for me, do I need to use a blockchain in my daily life? Not really, no. I'm not really developing anything. I don't have plans to develop anything. But to see something that is so simple that I can use it and deploy a chain, I feel very excited for it, for what the community can use it for what developers can use it for what potential partners and projects coming to our ecosystem can use it for. So for me, I was blown away between version 1 and where we are now. This one is more than just a fresh coat of paint. This is something that's going to be big.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So next up, let's go to Elaine. Elaine, how is Deployer for you from a user experience perspective? Is it simple, enjoyable to use? Lay it on us.
Yeah, well, first up, I'm not from a techie background, and working with blockchain, it's all sort of very clever and, but I managed to deploy several blockchains, of which I was so proud of myself. It was really exciting. I'd never done anything like this before. I love the way that Deployer steps you through the process. You see everything there in front of you. Each step is laid out, and you can't progress through the stages until you've successfully completed everything. And like Ray was saying, just to see your servers initializing, everything running, it's like a real wow moment. I should have been playing some dramatic music while it was all going ahead, March of the Valkyries or something. But yeah, it's very enjoyable. It's very straightforward. The user experience is superb. I'd like to hit on the design as well. The design of it is really great. All credit to the design team, because it is laid out so nicely. There's it's very crisp, it's very clear, it's very clean. And so yeah, I'm personally very excited about it. The whole sort of point click blockchain thing is real.
Yes, definitely real. And I resonate with everybody else's comments here. I mean, I've always enjoyed the point click blockchain slogan. I know that it's transitioning into a new slogan nowadays, but my shirt still says point click blockchain, so I like that. When I was first using the second version of the deployer, version 2 is the 2019 one with the graphical user interface. I remember the day and the feeling I felt when I created a blockchain by myself, and it was so empowering. Like, I used to always think when I first discovered crypto that the blockchain technology was way up there and I could not reach it. I could not access it. But as like a lowly user, I could use a wallet and send funds to my friends and stuff, but like leave the technology to the technologists because that's too technological. And I always wished that I could be up there kind of harnessing the technology in whatever capacity I could. And so when I was able to deploy a chain for the first time in 2019 with that second version of the deployer, like, yes, there was a lot of mouse clicks involved. Yes, there was a lot of keystrokes involved. But I was able to successfully do it, and it kind of changed my perspective on everything with this industry and what's possible. Because if I have the ability to harness this tech, then surely everybody who's more talented than me can do that, and that's a lot of people. I'm not tooting my own horn whatsoever. A lot of people way more talented than I am, especially in this space of blockchain. So so then moving forward to the version 3, like my personal experience was like, it was almost like I was jaded a little bit, because it was like, oh yeah, just click this button, here's your blockchain. But then after that initial, like, yeah, this is how it's supposed to be. After that initial feeling, I remembered what it was like before, and what it was like for the version 1 of the deployer, when I couldn't even do anything with it because it was too advanced for me. And like, I really realized how far it came to where people can now be almost is an afterthought deploying the chain, and they can focus on the use case, modifying the chain, enhancing it with custom transaction types like the GTI, learning about the principles of blockchain, the what is a blockchain, the why is blockchain important, the where can blockchain be applied. That all takes mental energy. That all takes, a lot of brain power, and to spend that brain power on the technical side to figure out how to actually make your chain work, and debugging things that went wrong and all these other things, that really takes away from the enthusiasm of working with the tech. And so I saw this in version 3, and it really like hit me hard that this can be something that can really benefit the entire industry as a whole. Like, not just the ARK ecosystem. I mean, yes, everybody who creates a chain becomes a part of the ecosystem, but I think that it's really cool that we're bringing something to the overall industry that really empowers more people than ever to create a blockchain. And the best ideas come from the most unlikely places. Somebody might have an idea that changes the world, but doesn't have the technical acuity to get a working blockchain out of the box. And this gives that to them. So that's what I'm really excited about. And that was my experiences and thoughts when I was first testing it. So there's that. There is that. But let us get into the community questions, because we've gone over all of these expo questions and getting into the core aspects of Deployer. Now it's time to hear what the community is talking about with Deployer and what they want to know. So we have a bunch of questions lined up. They range from easy to difficult. They range from amicable to incendiary, but we're going to answer them all and give you the honest truth and give you the lowdown. We're starting off with Matt here on this one. Matt, how much ARK will it cost to launch a chain? What is the business model?
Okay, that's a good question to start with. So the business model will probably evolve over time, but right now, for this first version, launching a basic blockchain in the way that we have it structured right now is going to be free. And that should stay free. And the reason is that we want people to use the deployer to do that experimentation and sort of really get in the weeds in what they can do. If we charged a lot of money for launching basic blockchains, for sort of launching clones of ARK or whatever the case, then I think that less people would use it. And I don't think that's good for the industry. So our goal was to make something that wasn't just easier, but was also accessible. And to be accessible, I think that basic functionality needs to be free. So for this case, the basic functionality will be free. Now, later on, I think we have some questions about what kind of the next steps are. And the idea is that we will eventually have a marketplace where users can post their own modules, basically their own expansions of what the blockchains can do. So we talk about ARK Core v3 being modular in the sense that you can create new transaction types and new functionality. So developers in the future will be able to build those new functionality pieces, those new modules, and list them in the deployer as part of the process of deploying. So for instance, Protocol is working on several pieces, including NFTs. We'll just put that out there. NFTs will be a new transaction type and will be a new functionality, and we would make that available in the deployer, and then Protocol would determine what they want to charge for that because they built it, right? So there will be premium modules, and there will probably be a lot of free modules, but that won't be up to us at that point. The basic experience will be free, but if you want some of those premium additions to your blockchain, they may have a cost associated based on who developed them and kind of their goals. So that's sort of, up in the air and something that will evolve over time as an open marketplace. But for us, for the basic functionality of Deployer, it is free.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks. So the next question is for Ray. Ray, how is the new Deployer relevant for the current projects on ARK and current partners that are not using ARK or Deployer yet?
So as far as the current projects that are involved, I really did spend a lot of time not only just testing deployer, but also going around testing all the other solutions within the industry that you would classify that try to accomplish a similar purpose, right? And I tried to say that in the friendliest way possible. So basically, all of those different projects, I noticed, like Matt was saying, have like these barriers for entry. You either have to pay a lot to deploy a basic version of a blockchain, or there really just isn't anything in there that would actually have you end up with a blockchain in general. So for current projects that are building on the ecosystem right now, I would just say that if you want to try and go in there and tinker around and create a blockchain, it's very simple. If you want to prototype something and you want to do it quickly, it's very simple. For projects that aren't building on ARK yet, this is a very, very enticing way to get people into the ecosystem and using the technology. By it being free from the outset, is you get all these people to come in, test it out, and if it's right for them, they're going to start building here, which is what we want eventually, right? We want people to come in and use the tech. So I really do think that for projects that aren't building on us yet, and we do have some queued up to start building once Deployer launches, I think for them it's going to be a great experience getting their chain up and running with Deployer. It's going to be easy, it's going to be fast, and most of all, it's going to give them what they need to get started.
Righteous. Thanks, Ray. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the next question is going to Matt. Matt, why was it rebranded to Deployer from ARK Deployer? Why is it at its own website, deployer.io, where the mailing list is open now and you can sign up for the beta launching during Q4 2020? Why, Matt?
Okay, so this goes back to sort of our philosophy as a whole about the products that we build. We have what we call the ARK blockchain framework. That is sort of our ARK core. That's how we're referring to it. It's a piece of the actual blockchain and associated tools that you're deploying and using for your ecosystem, your infrastructure. So that includes the wallets, the Explorer, and core itself. We left all of those labeled as ARK and then what they are, because those are sort of the core blockchain pieces, right? For Deployer and Market Square, they're not necessarily just ARK tools. And so we wanted to create a differentiation between things that were ARK specific and things that were not. The wallet being a special case where, we still wanted to call it the ARK desktop wallet because it's our wallet. But Deployer won't just deploy ARK. One of the things that I think people need to understand is that on our long-term roadmap, one of the things we want to be able to do is allow Deployer to push nodes for other networks. Not necessarily create a blockchain from scratch using another technology, but let's say you want to be able to launch a node for Lisk or a node for EOS. We want to be able to build that into Deployer to allow you to quickly and easily sort of deploy nodes for other technologies, so that if you want to interface with other networks with your application, you can do that easily. And so for Deployer, and this goes for Market Square as well, because we wanted to target the larger industry as a whole and not just the ARK community and the pieces of the puzzle related to ARK, we decided that we wanted to brand it in a way that was less threatening to sort of others in the community. I feel like if we come at everyone and say, come use ARK Market Square or the ARK Deployer, they think, okay, now I have to be an ARK person because everybody's so tribal, and they think like, okay, I've got to go buy all these ARK tokens and be this ARK person, and I believe in Ethereum, or I believe in EOS, or I believe in whatever. And we really want to get away from that thinking, this tribal mentality, and sort of make it about the industry as a whole and just say, I'm a blockchain person. And so Deployer is about, and Market Square to an extent, is about stepping away from just being an ARK person or an ARK community and being about blockchain as a whole. So we wanted to sort of relay that and how we branded it. And that's why it has its own website, and that's why it kind of has its own name.
Thanks, Matt. Well explained. Now, Elaine, I have a question for you. The question is this. I have been following ARK project for a long time. I am not a big developer, and ARK people keep saying it's so easy, but I could not figure out the last version. I have a cool idea and I want to launch a chain and invite delegates and developers to contribute to my chain according to my idea. Will I be able to do this with the new Deployer, or will I get stuck again like last time?
Okay, yeah. I understand exactly where this person's coming from. Like I said previously, I'm not a techie person. I did actually use the existing Deployer myself. And like this person here, I did get stuck. However, I can assure this person that the difference between the deployers, like I said, is light years. I'm pretty certain that this person will be able to use new deployer. I'm certain that they will be able to get their project up and running. We're going to have lots of documentation to help users. They can always contact support or even ask questions in the Slack channels. So you're not alone. We're not going to just leave you go. If you need help, help will be available. But like I said, this new deployer is light years different. And that's the whole idea of it. It's there to be accessible. That's the whole thought process behind the new deployer. So stick with us. You will achieve your goal. So keep looking out for help if you need it.
Thank you, Elaine. Thanks very much. Okay, so this question is going back to Matt here. Matt, get ready. Are you ready? All right. Matt, this question is for you. You launched the first deployer in 2018 and the second in 2019, and now this. I never used it before, but it seems like you're launching the same product over and over. Is this some kind of hype move or something?
Yeah, completely. 100%. Next question. No, so no, obviously not. That's a silly question. It's not a new product. We're not saying it's a new product. We're saying it's a new version of a product, right? So this is the new version of the deployer. And the reason is because it evolves over time. If you look at any other product in any industry, there will be new releases. Every new iPhone that comes out is still an iPhone, but it has differences. And each time we've iterated on this concept of the deployer, we've added new exciting functionality that takes it that next step. So we talked about this in the beginning in some of our introduction pieces, but the first version, it was all command line. The second version had an interface and allowed you to customize a chain, but it was still kind of complicated to deploy it. This one, you can now customize your chain and deploy it all super easy through the UI. But we're not done yet. There's still more pieces that can come on after that, like the module marketplace that I mentioned before, and some other things that we'll probably talk about soon. So we're not going to stop developing. Our products will continue to evolve over time, and we'll continue to release new versions. And of course, when we have a new version and it's exciting and we have new features, we're going to talk about it. So if it is about hype in the sense that we're hyped about the new features and launching it and getting it out there to people, but it's not a hype move because we're not, as a company, we are not in any way focused on the price of the token or pushing this hype and this, kind of common concept in this industry of like, oh, let's go to the moon and blah, blah, blah. We're about building good products, and this is a great product, and we're excited to get it out there.
Thank you, Matt. We are now moving to Elaine for this next question. Elaine, are you going to have a contest in the community for making chains or some giveaway? I don't need a blockchain, but I would like to try it out. I want free stuff or winnings, though.
Okay, yeah, we all want free stuff and winnings, me included. It's a good question. Yeah, I mean, it's something that we have actually been talking about amongst the team. At the moment, we don't have any plans. I'm not ruling anything out, but if anybody in the community has any ideas, feel free to drop them into the Slack channel, or you can email me your ideas at elaine@ark.io. But like I say, nothing in the pipeline at the moment, but stick with us and who knows.
Thanks, Elaine. Fantastic. Okay, so this next question is back to Matt. Matt, how will users find out whether or not a coin was created via deployer? So like somebody creates a chain and then like, how does it get discovered? Like, will there be a coin market cap, but just for deployer coins and ARK?
Awesome question. So we actually built an entire product for this. So we've recently talked about Market Square, but the entire purpose of Market Square is to allow people who are building new projects to be able to be discovered, to be able to find a community or put themselves out in front of the community. And so I think Market Square is a big point of that. CoinMarketCap will have some features that will allow you to sort of list your token, your coin, but also talk about your project, which I think is the more important part. I think everybody is so focused on the coin and getting a price and on an exchange and all this nonsense. But I mean, Market Square and what we're building is about the technology and about the projects. It's not necessarily about the price. And so what we want to be able to do is get your company and your project and what you're trying to build in front of people. That's the important part for us. And so Market Square facilitates that ability for you to kind of list your project, talk about your project, and promote it to the community and find users and people who are excited, including validators and all of their types, developers, and, anybody who's in Market Square. On top of that, we haven't shown this yet or talked about it, but we probably will be adding an asset list to Market Square. That will be sort of like a coin market cap, but with a little bit different focus. So we'll talk about that more in the future, though. But yes, we will have a way for people to find new things that are launched with the deployer, and Market Square is kind of the focal point for that.
All right, very good. Thanks, Matt. Yeah, definitely great to take any opportunity to promote Market Square because it's doing exactly what this person is asking, just like you said, So Market Square is going to be pretty cool. And if you have not checked out the roundtable video on Market Square, you can do that on our YouTube channel. I'll also throw the link in the description. So this next question is for me. Yeah, you'll notice that these questions are not coming at me until now, but this one is a pretty cool one that I wanted to answer. This question is the following. The deployer will for sure revolutionize the crypto world. I think, however, any new coin developed on the deployer should be tied in with ARK somehow. If there isn't already a plan for an exclusive ARK to deployer coin exchange, I think that's a missed opportunity, and there should definitely be an exchange to just trade ARK and deployer coins. It's what's making Ethereum a huge platform right now. ARK can be a much bigger platform with point-click blockchain stuff, but not if deployer coins are completely independent from ARK and have no ties with it. At the very least, they should be easily tradable with each other right from launch. Ideally, any new deployer coin from the moment of launch should be instantly tradable with ARK. So this reads more like an opinion as opposed to a question, as there are no question marks in this question. But I understand the question that's being asked here, and so I'd like to address that. Now, these are some good insights that you have come across with this. And to become a full service ecosystem, ideally, you'd want to serve these projects that are getting created, and then they need a way to interface with the overall rest of the industry. So if you check the roadmap on roadmap.ark.io, you will see 2 items on the roadmap in 2021 that discuss a consensus mechanism upgrade and a swap market. So this is something that's been in the works for a long time now. And of course, ARK has a famously branded technology called Smart Bridge technology that enables 2 chains to communicate with one another. And ARK HTLC Smart Bridge is coming after these 2 elements are completed. So first, we need to do this consensus mechanism upgrade to improve the finality on the chain. And because you need to be able to exchange assets safely, and in order to do that, you need to make sure that all of the nodes that are participating in validation have the correct copy of the blockchain as fast as possible so that you can make the proper exchange. So in order to do that, we're implementing a Tendermint-style consensus mechanism upgrade to the ARK delegated proof of stake system. And most of the mechanisms of delegated proof of stake that you're used to with ARK will remain the same, like voters still vote, and all of that still is the same for users. But the delegates will instead vote on new blocks, and then the finality can happen instantly, nearly instantly, instead of having to wait for all the delegates to get the copy correctly. So once that's in place, then we can implement this swap market situation where you can have ARK deploy coin pairings, and then you can have this exchange that you're talking about where you could press one button, deploy a new chain, and then have that chain be instantly tradable with ARK in a decentralized way. So this vision that you're describing is something that is a part of ARK's future, and I wanted you to know that. And you can check and keep up to date on the roadmap to see where we're at with that. And of course, stay tuned on our blog at blog.ark.io. And interoperability has always been a key focus of ARK since its inception and still to this day. But in previous interviews, Matt has said that it's good to lay the foundation of the product suite and make sure that the user experience is cohesive and have one universal user experience, and then build interoperability into that. So it's kind of like building all of the parts, and then the interoperability is like the ignition for the car. So it's kind of like that. But as I said earlier, stay tuned on blog, and this type of stuff that you're describing is on the horizon for sure, for sure. So this next question is going back to Matt. Speaking of Matt, could you deploy a chain and then add an Ethereum virtual machine on top of that deployed chain with ARK technology?
Okay. I will answer that question, but first I'd like to go back to the previous question that Justin just addressed, because I want to add a few thoughts to
and
that.
You're here, so I don't need to
yeah.
what you would have said in the past or other things. So Matt, please take this away, please.
Yeah. So first off, just looking at this question is about, hey, ARK could be worth a lot more if you did these things like Ethereum does, because Ethereum's worth more because hype, right? Like that's how this question reads. And I want to take a step back from that and talk about fundamental issues that we have with Ethereum and why we took the approach we did with ARK. There is a reason that ARK is not fundamentally at the core of every single thing that happens in our ecosystem like Ethereum is with Ethereum. And if you've been following the industry at all right now, you know that Ethereum fees are at like anywhere between $10 to $30, right? This is to send very small amounts of money. So you're spending more on the fee than the transaction in a lot of cases because of the way Ethereum is designed, because gas is required, and because everything is centralized around one network. Every single piece of activity has to go on that one network. And so if you look at a business that wants to create, let's say, an IoT application, and they do it as a smart contract on Ethereum, right now, to send sensor data from an electrical switch, it would cost them $30 for every single piece of data they send on that IoT network, because that smart contract is on Ethereum and that transaction requires that transaction to be on Ethereum. And so you have to pay the gas fees. So that tiny little minuscule transaction would cost at least $30. That business cannot function that way. That is completely not feasible for that business. And so we have fundamentally from day one taken a different approach. And that is that you should not bottleneck your transactions. You should not bottleneck your network activity. Meaning you don't need just one network and everything on one network. Yes, that is good for price. And yes, that will pump gas higher and higher as people buy more. But it limits the capabilities and it limits who can do business on that chain because they're reliant on everyone else not congesting the network. ARK takes a different approach in that we believe that everybody who needs a different use case can create their own blockchain. And we allow them to do that essentially for free right now with the new deployer in a matter of 30 minutes, right? There's no reason not to do that, because if you're a business and you need to send transactions to do business for your livelihood, you can't have $30 fees when somebody wants to buy an apple or when somebody is paying you for mowing a lawn, right? They're not going to pay $40 to mow your lawn and then $30 in transaction fees. That's just absurd. This industry started complaining about Visa and MasterCard and how they took 3%. People complain about PayPal and all these other services. Ethereum right now is absolutely worse than all of those. And so the reason is because all of the transactions have to go on one network that only has a certain throughput, and the congestion costs too much, right? So to talk about that last one, we believe in interoperability and growing our ecosystem through integration. And that means working with other projects. That also means that everything that is built with ARK blockchain framework, everything that is pushed through Deployer, is built on ARK Core v3. So if we have ARK, the ARK public network, and we have a chain that somebody pushes through Deployer, they will both use Core v3, which means they both have the same exact technology, the same APIs, the same information. The way that they talk is the same. They use the same language. So any network that is launched with Deployer using ARK Core v3 can speak to other networks and can look at data and understand how to function within our ecosystem. But they're not 100% reliant on the APN to do business. If you're looking for a project, if you're looking for a coin, if you're looking for a network that will require you to use one token to do anything, this is not the place for you. We are not about that. We never have been, and we never will be. So if you think we're going to turn ARK into some kind of gas fee, you're just in the wrong place. That's not what we're about. However, we will find ways to make ARK help facilitate the function of the rest of the ecosystem. And that's why we're building Market Square. That's why we're building Deployer. We're making it easier for people to launch chains that can be interoperable through swaps and other mechanisms, and Market Square to help you find those projects and get involved with those projects. But we will not make ARK required for those projects to function because that creates the same bottleneck that we're seeing in Ethereum, which is not feasible long term. And even Ethereum knows that, Vitalik knows that, everybody knows that. That's not up for debate. So that's the previous question.
And Matt, I really want to just jump in here and just tell you that I appreciate so much those points that you made, because like you're really driving home the aspect of sovereignty and scalability and what ARK is standing for and trying to do. And I blanked on those aspects of this question. Like I was looking at it as more of like a technical, like, can you swap between ARK and other things? And it's like, yeah, in the future you can. But like Matt, like you really jumped on those additional points that are in the background that really kind of get to the bottom of what like the true issue actually is. And I do go into that in even further detail on a couple podcast episodes on podcast.ark.io in the archives, specifically about scalability and sovereignty. Those are the core value deep dive series episodes. So if you want to hear like more of those concepts, you can hit that. But Matt, like you really drove that home and hit it on the head. Like it's not like we're going to be successful just by doing what everybody else is doing. Like and also you really do a good job of seeing the true needs of the industry and the people who are using the technology. It's more like the industry right now is catered to like the people who are like holding the coins or doing trading or you know, like this DeFi craze, right? Like, oh, let's just list a coin on Uniswap that does nothing and then let's pump it and then it dumps and like, oh, well, like next coin, there's a new one tomorrow. And like I'm just glad that I'm involved with a project that doesn't stand for like any of that type of stuff. And I just wanted to add that as well to your answer. So thank you, Matt. And so, yes, let's go to, you can respond to that if you want to. But
yeah. So like you said, scalability and sovereignty, those are things that are our core values. They're in our white paper. Those are core values of ARK. So our primary goal, like I said earlier in the call, was, you know, make blockchain easier for everyone. And part of that is also making it possible for everyone, right? Some businesses can't use Ethereum because of these fees. It's just not feasible. If you have your own blockchain and you have that sovereignty, then you can. And so I think that's a big difference between what ARK stands for. Going back to the make blockchain easy for everyone, trying to launch an Ethereum node or some of these networks, if you try to launch a blockchain from scratch in some of these other technologies, it's really complicated. It takes a long time. And so that's why we put so much effort and time into today's topic, Deployer, is because we wanted it to be easy to launch these sovereign blockchains, because we think that's an important piece. People will choose to go to an Ethereum smart contract if it's too complicated to build a sovereign blockchain. So our goal was to make it easier to build a sovereign blockchain so you don't have to make that sacrifice. So that's the previous question, though. To the current question, can you deploy a blockchain with ARK and then add EVM to it? Hopefully you'll be able to add more than EVM to it. So we talked about this earlier, but you know, the deployer will evolve even further. And one of the things that will evolve to, and the reason that we're building ARK Core and our ARK blockchain framework to be modular, is so that we can add new components to it. So essentially ARK Core will be one piece, and then you'll add on components for what you want your blockchain to do. And those will be available in the marketplace. Those may be premium. They may have a cost associated depending on who built them, like I mentioned earlier, but EVM could be one of those components. Somebody would need to build it, and it would need to probably be JavaScript to make sense to everyone, but that could be built by somebody, maybe by us, maybe by protocol, maybe by whoever, and listed in the marketplace. And then you would be able, during the deployment process and the customization process, to choose those modules. So you could say, I want an EVM, or I want NFTs, or I want the ability to add tokens or whatever. And then when you launch, that module will be included in the code. So right now, as it stands today, there is no EVM solution for the ARK blockchain framework. However, that is one of the things that we have always talked about that we want, but we couldn't do it until Core was properly modular to make it easy to add on without essentially making it required, right? Because some people don't want to be Ethereum. Some people don't want all of that other functionality on their network. They only want the function that they need, not the ability for people to launch smart contracts. And so the key here is giving people the option, right? In our desktop bullet post, we talked about the power of choice and how the desktop is focused on allowing the user to do all these great things and decide what it looks like to them. Our blockchain framework is the same way. We believe that the blockchain should be about the company and the use case, and building your blockchain specifically to facilitate the need of what you have, what you need, giving you the power of choice to create it just with the function you need and not any extra stuff you don't need or that congestion or other, activity. So The short answer, because I talk a lot, is yes, you will be able to do that once somebody builds it.
All right. Thanks very much, Matt. So this next question is for me. It's specifically for me. This person wants me to answer this, and I'm going to read this verbatim, and then we're going to see where that takes us. So I want Justin to answer this. Okay, that's me. I will answer this. I have been listening to your podcast for a long time. Thanks. It is clear that every time you talk about the deployer on the podcast, you get more excited than other times. This is true. When I watched your deployer video last year in the park, I tried to use deployer and you said it was a walk in the park. It was not a walk in the park, Justin. I never coded before, but I could not make my chain work. Please explain why you said walk in the park in the video. Is the new one a walk in the park, Justin? I will trust you only one more time. Okay. First off, thank you for your compliment about the podcast. I'm really glad that there's a listener out there listening to my ramblings every week.
Just one.
Okay. I need to start off by saying that I do still believe that the last year version is a walk in the park compared to the first version, which was command line only. So in the context of version 1 to version 2, version 1 was like, I had to just throw up my hands and be like, I don't even know what to, like, I went to the GitHub and I like looked at some code and I looked at some release notes, but then I was like, I don't know how to use this at all and how to harness it. Like, of course I was very curious. This was before I joined the team. I was just a community member. I was like, cool, ARK released some new technology. Like, let me go see what's up with that. And I went to see what's up with that and I couldn't do anything with that. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess it's not for me. So then with the second version of the deployer launching and with me now in the team, I was like, okay, let me assist the hardworking team that's working on this and also contribute some feedback and some ideas and some documentation elements to make sure that someone like me can launch a chain. So like that was one of my main goals personally, as a member of the team who did much work on this. It was one of my main goals for this was like, Justin should be able to launch a chain after this new deployer. Like no more delay. It's been like a year and a half. I want to launch a chain. Let's go. So then when the second version came out, I was able to launch a chain and I was able to follow the instructions. There were a lot of steps. I mean, I did break it down into 3 simple steps: prepare, customize, and deploy. And deploy had a lot of sub steps. So there's that. But I was able to follow each of these steps and deploy a chain by myself successfully. So I did, for me, see that as a walk in the park. And I am very enthusiastic about ARK technology and what ARK is doing. So it doesn't really feel like work to me. It feels more like an exploration or an adventure for me to get my hands around this technology and make it do something. And so that's kind of like where I was coming from with my verbiage in my video that you saw last year. For me, it was a walk in the park compared to the past. In the industry-wide, I mean, good luck launching a clone of the top 100 blockchains. Like, I would be extremely impressed if you're able to do that. But with ARK, it was as simple that I could do it. So with this new version of the deployer, you were saying to me, and you asked me, is this new one a walk in the park? Okay, I will trust you only one more time. So from your perspective of being frustrated with last year's version, and I'm not saying I wasn't frustrated from time to time with last year's version. Like in some respects, I was right there with you. But I was really happy about being able to launch a chain. I'm sorry that you weren't able to figure that out. And I can definitely suggest to you that this new version will get you there. Just as Elaine was mentioning earlier in this video to that other person who asked the question, I can definitely say with a pretty good degree of confidence that you'll be able to launch a chain with this new version, because there's going to be so many more things that are automated in the background that you don't have to worry about. And all you have to do is use the graphical user interface that's built in to connect your VPS to it, connect DigitalOcean to it, deploy the chain where everything happens in the background. And then you'll see your dashboard after the chain is deployed. There's a live dashboard that shows you there's a node and here's the nodes of your chain, and you can see what they are, what their IPs are, and learn about the properties of your nodes and things like that. So I'm going to cash in that coin you gave me when you said that you would trust me one more time. And I'm going to put that coin on you being able to launch a chain. And if you can't launch a chain, you can personally yell at me in DMs in the general channel of Slack and say, this is not a walk in the park. I trusted you one last time. You're allowed to do that, okay? And I will come and talk to you. But I do think that you'll be able to launch a chain. And thank you for your question and support. All right, so this is the last question before we talk about the future of the deployer. This question's for me. Will other coins created using the ARK Deployer be viewable on the ARK wallet, or do we need a separate wallet for every coin on the ARK Deployer? It would be nice to connect these together, much like how one account in Ethereum can hold many different tokens. Okay, so yeah, I understand this question. There's actually a bit of a two-part answer to this. Yes, you can use the same application to interact with multiple networks. So the ARK desktop wallet is a multi-asset crypto wallet that supports all ARK-based tokens and coins, as well as the ARK Public Network's main crypto asset, ARK. And then in the future, which you saw in the recent blog article about desktop wallet, I was just thinking to myself, did we make that public yet or not? Okay, we did. So if you saw that article about desktop wallet, we're adding more popular crypto assets to the ARK desktop wallet in the future as well. So you'll be able to use one application to interact with all these crypto assets to give you like a seamless user experience, similar to MetaMask, right? Like you open your MetaMask wallet and here's your Ethereum and here's all of your other Ethereum tokens. Same user experience. You open your ARK desktop wallet, here's your ARK, here's your Bitcoin, here's your other coins, here's all of your ARK-based crypto assets as well. Now, the question is also answered with no as well, because it's all separate networks. So with Ethereum, it's one network. So you can have multiple tokens on that network, and then you can have all these tokens residing at one address that also has your Ethereum in it. With ARK, it's all separate networks. So you would have unique wallet addresses for each of your crypto assets that are based on ARK. You'd have address A for ARK, address B for Compendia or Bind, and so on and so forth. So we are preserving as much as we can this singular user experience and a nice, easy flow for interacting with multiple blockchains. That's one of the main points of ARK. Integrations, interoperability, right? All these things. However, we are also drawing certain lines at sovereignty and scalability, as Matt was mentioning earlier. So this is why we're having multiple networks in the background. But for the foreground, for users, we want to keep it as uniform as possible. So hopefully this answered your question and also provided some additional details about what we are and what we're trying to do. All right, so let's conclude this roundtable with a final question for Matt. Talking about the future of Deployer and what's coming and why we should be excited after the first public beta launches during Q4 2020, and you can sign up for that mailing list at deployer.io. Matt, what's coming next?
Quite a lot. We have a lot of products that we're working on. However, Deployer has its own roadmap and set of kind of goals that we have. One of the main ones is next building that marketplace that we talked about. So building the Deployer module market, building in the ability for people to have a system to go in during the deployment process in Deployer and find all of the really cool, extra components and features they can add to their blockchain to make it really specific to what they want to use it for. That includes building in systems that help people build those modules and list them and determine whether they're going to charge for them and how much and all of that. So this whole marketplace concept for Deployer to allow people to build custom modules and sell them or list them, those are big major milestones coming up for Deployer. That's kind of the next big roadmap item probably. However, there are smaller roadmap items sprinkled in that we'll be working on as well. And that includes adding like I mentioned, nodes for other technologies. So the ability to launch a relay for other networks, something that you can interface with for your applications or services that you have, that would be able to be deployed with Deployer at some point. And then also, we have another product that we're going to be building that we're calling the Node Manager and Nodem for short, which we haven't talked about yet. But that will be sort of the follow-on piece to Deployer. So you would launch your network and deploy it with Deployer. And then to actually manage those ARK nodes, whether they're delegates or relays or whatever, you would use the node manager once they're deployed. So that will be kind of like a follow-on piece. So whereas Deployer now goes all the way through customization to deployment, what do you do once it's deployed and you have a network? That's kind of where the node manager will come into play. So we'll be focusing on the module market. We'll be focusing on adding the ability to deploy nodes for other networks, and we'll be focusing on the node manager as key priorities for pushing Deployer forward.
All right. Thanks very much, Matt. And at this time, I'd just like to thank you so much for coming on the YouTube channel today and being a part of this roundtable. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's fun. Always good questions. Thanks, everyone.
Brilliant. And Ray, I'd like to thank you as well for coming on today.
No problem. Love answering questions from the community and super excited for Deployer.
And Elaine, true pleasure having you today here.
Oh, thank you very much for having me here today, Justin. And also thank you for some great questions there. See you in the channels.
All right, well, that's going to do it for this roundtable. Hope you really enjoyed this first look and discussion about the new version of the deployer. Coming soon during Q4 of 2020, there is a mailing list you can sign up for to get exclusive access. That is at deployer.io. And with that, you can write a comment to us below if you have further questions about Deployer. We'll be happy to answer them. And join us on slack.ark.io if you want to talk with us on the team. You can just go to slack.ark.io, get an account, and be like at Matt or at Ray or at Elaine or at Justin, and we'll be there. Really appreciate your support in the ARK ecosystem. We'll see you next time.